is the belief, the position of all the historic apostolic churches, Coptic, Church of the East, Catholic, and Orthodox, that Peter was given primacy of position. He was singled out to be the head of the apostles and given authority over them, but an authority that he exercised in humble service, not lording it over them. And you see evidence of that in the New Testament, in that Peter is often singled out for privileges not given to others. For example, on the Mount of Transfiguration, out of the 12 apostles, only 3 were chosen to see it. One of them was Peter, right? When Jairus' daughter was raised, only 3 were allowed to see the miracle. One of them was Peter, right? When Jesus prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane, only 3 were allowed to be near Jesus to hear his actual prayer. The others were at a great distance. One of them was Peter, correct?
Yes.
And Jesus singled out Peter for a resurrection appearance. He appeared to Peter individually. If you go to 1 Corinthians 15, open up 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Read 5 for me.
And that he was seen by Cephas.
Notice the name Cephas again, right? Calls him Cephas.
Yeah.
So here you have Jesus appearing to Peter singularly, an individual appearance to Peter, then to the 12, then to the 500, then also to James, and then Paul. So you see Peter is being set apart for special privileges not given to the other apostles, even privileges not given to James and John. And another privilege you'll see that the Lord gives to Peter. If you go to Luke 22, 31 to 32.
The Lord said, Simon, Simon, indeed Satan has asked for you, that he may sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for you, that your faith should not fail. And when you have returned to me, strengthen your brethren.
Now, in your translation, you don't see the difference in the pronoun you. So I'm going to give you the King James real quickly, and it's in the Greek. You don't need to know Greek. I'm not a Greek scholar, but just saying. Okay, did you notice the first thing? Jesus singles out Simon again, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't address every one of them, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now, so first thing I want you to notice from this verse, he speaks to Peter specifically and individually. He doesn't say it to everyone. The second thing he does for Peter, he says, I prayed for you. You don't see it in your translation. You is singular, meaning I prayed specifically for you. That's the second thing. The third thing, you know, Jesus entrusted Peter with the responsibility of restoring the rest of the apostles. So notice the 3 facts you see from this passage. And I'm going to give you the authorized version, because in the authorized version, it does something for you where you can know whether the pronoun you means 1 or 2 or more, that you don't find in modern versions, unless they add some further clarification. And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan has desired to have you. Now, if you notice you, it's Y-O-U, that's common sense. But watch how the pronouns will change. That he may sift you as wheat. But I prayed for thee. See the difference now? It went from you to thee, T-H-E-E. That thy faith fail not. When thou art converted, strengthen thy brethren. Now, this is the beauty of the King James, in that it does something for you other modern versions don't do. It will let you know when the pronoun you is 1 or 2 or more. And how do you know that? Whenever you see in the King James these words, thee, thy, thine, thou, that's 1. But when it's you, your, ye, that's 2 or more. Do you understand the feature there?
Yes.
Okay. So did you catch what Jesus said? Simon has asked for you, but I prayed for thee. You catch it?
Mm-hmm.
So Jesus again singled out Peter. I prayed for thee when thou art restored, right? Converted. Go and strengthen thy brethren. So notice the 3 privileges or 3 facts, 3 blessings. He speaks to Simon individually, not to the rest, not to all. And he says to Simon, I prayed specifically for you. And then he entrusts Simon with the responsibility of restoring the rest after Satan has sifted them. So if you look at the Bible, you'll see this pattern of Peter being singled out for privileges and a status, not that he deserved it because he's no better than the rest, but because of God's grace. Another example, if you don't mind, you can use the New King James for this one. Go to Mark 16, read verses 6 to 8. Mark 16, verses 6 to 8, and pay attention to verse 7.
But he said to them, do not be alarmed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He is risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him. But go tell his disciples and Peter.
You see Peter singled out again, huh?
Yeah.
Why single out Peter when this is mentioning disciples includes him automatically? Go tell disciples and Peter. Again, Peter's being singled out. Now keep reading.
And Peter, that he is going before you into Galilee. There you will see him, as he said to you.
Okay, so you got it. And then what happened? What happens in verse 8? What do they do?
So they went out quickly and fled from the tomb, for they trembled and were amazed. And they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid.
Now go to Luke 24. Luke 24. When you get there, read from, I want to see where you should start. Yeah, start from 28 and read all the way to 35. 28 to 35. Luke 24, 28 to 35.
Then they drew near to the village where they were going, and he indicated that he would have gone farther. But they constrained him, saying, Abide with us, for it is toward evening, and the day is fast spent. And he went in to stay with them. Now it came to pass, as he sat at the table with them, that he took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they knew him, and he vanished from their sight. And they said to one another, Did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us on the road, and while he opened the scriptures to us? So they rose up that very hour and returned to Jerusalem, and found the 11 and those who were with them gathered together, saying, The Lord is risen indeed, and has appeared to Simon.
To who?
And to Simon.
So again, he singles out Simon for a resurrection appearance.
Okay.
So notice what the Lord is doing for Simon. He appears to Simon after the resurrection, one-on-one. He singles out Simon for privileges such as being the one, once he's restored, due to Jesus' prayer, that he'll go and strengthen and restore the other disciples. When the angels tell the woman to go announce to Jesus' followers that Christ is risen, they go to the disciples and Peter. And then in the Mount of Transfiguration, Peter is there. Jairus' daughter being raised, Peter is there. Garden of Gethsemane, Peter is there, and on it goes. This is not a coincidence. This repeated pattern is deliberately designed by the Spirit in order to show that though they're all one, Peter has a position of primacy over the rest. This is why even in Galatians 2, verses 1 to 10, Galatians 2, verses 1 to 10, if you read that entire section, Paul says, due to a vision, obviously a vision from Christ, he was told to go back to Jerusalem 14 years after his ministry, 14 years later after he converted, to check with those reputed pillars of the church in Jerusalem. And he mentions who those pillars were. Simon, Peter, Cephas, John, and James, the so-called brother of the Lord. So this is a pattern that's there, right? So there's no problem with Peter being the rock, but no one believes he's the rock alone. He is the rock, and he has a position of primacy over the rest, but they too, in union with Peter, are the foundation upon which Jesus built his church. Now, if you go to, let me give you one more example of how important the apostles are, including Peter. Go to Revelation 21, the last book of the Bible. Read verses 9 to 14.
Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls filled with the 7 last plagues came to me and talked with me, saying, Come, I will show you the bride, the Lamb's wife. And he carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me the great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God, having the glory of God. Her light was like a most precious stone, like a jasper stone, clear as crystal. Also she had a great and high wall with 12 gates, and 12 angels at the gates. And names were written on them, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. 3 gates on the east, 3 on the north, 3 on the south, and 3 on the west. Now the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them were the names of the 12 disciples of the Lamb.
12 disciples, it says apostles.
Yeah.
I thought you said disciples. So you see how important the apostles are, including Peter? they're not only the foundation of the church, they're the foundation of heavenly Jerusalem, the city that we will dwell in when it comes down to the earth.
Okay.
So I hope that clarified it. If you have other questions, feel free.
Let me ask a question.
Say it again.
So look, why is there such a controversy between Catholics and Protestants about this verse about Peter? If it's consistent throughout Scripture that the apostles are of course, they're important. They're the foundation.
They are, yeah.
Why is this such a controversial issue between Catholics and Protestants? What's the big deal?
Well, here's the thing. When you say Protestants, you're generalizing, because if you get Protestant commentaries on the Gospel of Matthew by Protestant scholars like Donald Carson, most of them admit Peter is the rock mentioned in Matthew 16. And I'll give you just one name, Donald A. Carson. He's an evangelical professor. He's not Catholic. If you read his commentary, he'll tell you that when Jesus said, "Upon this rock I build my church," that's Peter. So not all Protestants deny that Peter is the rock of Matthew 16, verse 18. Now, why do other Protestants deny it? Out of reaction to the Catholic Church. It's reactionary. They're afraid to admit that if it's Peter, then that means not only is Peter the head of the church, and you know the apostles who are, obviously they're the foundation, but he's their head, then that means Peter's successor would be the head of the church on the earth. And if the Pope is Peter's successor, that means he's the head of the church. And they don't want to believe that and go that far and accept it. But what I'm telling you is, here's what I want you to hear. Even if you don't believe the Pope is the head of the church, that doesn't mean that if you believe Peter is the head, that you have to believe the Pope is. In other words, believe it or not, there are even people here who are Orthodox, Coptic, Assyrian Church of the East. I'm not saying they're right, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're right. What I'm trying to tell you is you have Assyrian Church of the East, Coptic Church, Orthodox, who all accept Peter is the rock, the head of the apostles, but they don't believe the Pope alone is the head of the church. They believe that all the bishops in their respective sees are sitting on the throne of Peter and have equal authority over the church on earth. So what I'm saying, you can believe Peter's the rock and still not accept that the Pope is the one head of the church, but it doesn't mean you're right or wrong. This is a debate even among Catholics, Orthodox, Coptic, and Assyrian Church of the East. And I'm not here to solve that because I don't have much knowledge about church history to solve that issue.
Okay. So, does it matter? Does it matter which interpretation you take?
It
why
depends.
is it so significant why is it so significant?
Well, it matters one way. We all want to know God's interpretation of the Bible, right?
Sure, yes.
So it matters because we want to know what God means. That's the first reason.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, it also matters how you interpret the Bible, because depending on what passage you interpret, you can come with wrong theology that'll damn you to hell. For example, does it matter how Jehovah's Witnesses interpret those passages about the Trinity?
Yeah.
Why? Why should it matter?
Because that's the nature of God, and we need to understand who God is, how he's revealed himself to us.
So you see, so yes, interpretation can matter and often does matter depending on what you're interpreting. That's the point.
Right, so this particular thing, what is this?
Well, that's important too,
Why is this so divisive?
Because it's talking about the most important living organism on earth, the Church of Jesus Christ. There's nothing more important to Jesus than his spiritual body on earth and in heaven. So it does matter in that it's not just talking about something that's secondary. The Church of Jesus is not secondary. Mm-hmm. The Church of Jesus is essential because it's a spiritual body on earth as well as in heaven, because you also have church in heaven. But here in particular, I'm talking about the church on earth that the apostles went about establishing. And what's more beloved to Jesus than his bride? What's more beloved to Jesus than his spiritual body, the church? Nothing. So it is important in that area to get it right. And you also have to check, when I say check yourself, not you. When I say you, I usually mean it generally. You also have to check yourself to see, are you opposing Peter being the rock out of reaction to Catholicism? Because many Protestants do that. I used to do that. I'm being honest. I'm going to speak of myself.
I'm not doing that.
Good. That's all right. That's fine. But I'm saying I used to do that.
I just want to be on the side of truth. That's what I want.
Amen. But I'm letting you know, I did not want to accept Peter as the rock out of reaction to Catholicism. I'm being honest. See, I'm not going to lie. I despise the Catholic Church because I believe, I'm telling you what I used to believe 20 years ago. And I'm laughing at myself, but thank the Lord he had mercy on me and patience with me. I believed it was the Antichrist system. The Pope is the Antichrist, and there were Jesuits who were working with the Illuminati to bring about a one world government. And, you know, I was into all of that. Mm-hmm. It's funny now, but back then it was serious.
Okay.